The Galactic Council chamber floated in the void like a monument to bureaucratic pomposity, which, let's be honest, is exactly what it was. Inside, the representatives of 47 different species sat in their climate-controlled bubbles, each convinced that their particular flavor of evolution made them special. But nobody, and I mean nobody, was more convinced of their own badassery than the Vrexians. Commander Krelnoth stood at the center podium, his 4 arms crossed in what his species considered an intimidating pose. His exoskeleton gleamed under the chamber lights, each chitinous plate a testament to millions of years of surviving on Vrexia Prime, a world so hostile that even its plants had developed a taste for meat. The Vrexians had clawed their way to the top of their food chain, quite literally, and they never let anyone forget it. Fellow council members, Krelnoth announced, his mandibles clicking with satisfaction, I call this session to order. Today's agenda includes trade negotiations, mining rights, and the monthly reminder that the Vrexian Empire remains the undisputed champions of surviving the unsurvivable. A chorus of groans echoed through the translation systems. The Catharii representative, Ambassador Peldatz, whose species evolved in methane swamps filled with acid-spitting worms, raised one of her tentacles in protest. Oh, please. Your world has carnivorous plants. Ours has carnivorous weather. I once saw a storm that digested an entire settlement. Bah, interjected General Throck of the Stonehide Collective, slamming his massive fist on his desk. His species had evolved on a high-gravity world where the very air was thick enough to chew. You think plants and weather are impressive? My people developed skin that can deflect plasma fire through sheer evolutionary spite. We are born in crustal stress zones where the ground itself tries to kill us. And so it went, as it did every month, each species trying to one-up the others in the galaxy's most ridiculous measuring contest. They called themselves Deathworlders, species that had evolved on planets so absurdly hostile that they developed survival traits bordering on superpowers. It was a prestigious club, and they guarded that prestige jealously. Krelnoth was about to continue this delightful waste of everyone's time when his datapad chimed. He glanced down, his compound eyes scanning the message. Then he froze. Then, and this is important, he started laughing. Not the polite chuckle of diplomatic courtesy, but the full-throated, mandible-clacking belly laugh of someone who just heard the universe's best joke. What is it? Peldatz asked, her bioluminescent patches flickering with curiosity. Krelnoth held up the datapad, still chuckling. We have received an application to join the Galactic Federation. From a species calling themselves humans. From a planet called Earth. He paused for dramatic effect, his laughter subsiding into amused clicking. And they have checked the box claiming to be a Deathworld species. The chamber erupted in laughter. Oh, this was going to be entertaining. Ambassador Zalthor, the Vrexian diplomatic attaché, took it upon himself to present the human application to the council. He pulled up the holographic display with a flourish that suggested he was about to unveil the punchline to a particularly elaborate joke. And in his mind, he absolutely was. Esteemed colleagues, he began, his voice dripping with the kind of condescension usually reserved for explaining basic concepts to particularly slow children, allow me to share the highlights of Earth's application. I promise you, this is better than any comedy transmission you've ever received. He tapped the datapad, and Earth statistics materialized in glowing blue text above the assembly. Let us begin with their gravity. 0.98 standard units. Respectable, I suppose, if you're into that sort of thing. Not quite as impressive as the Stonehide's 2.3, but adequate. Get to the good part, someone shouted from the back. Zalthor's mandibles clicked in delight. Ah yes, the biodiversity section. Apparently, Earth has something called a hippopotamus. A herbivore, mind you, that kills more of these humans annually than their apex predators. They also mention creatures called box jellyfish, mosquitoes, and something delightfully absurd called a honey badger. He paused, reading further. Oh, and there's an entire continent they've named Australia that appears to be entirely populated by things trying to murder them. They have spiders there that eat birds. Birds, colleagues. And yet, they built cities there anyway. The Cathari ambassador leaned forward. What about their atmospheric composition? Surely that's where the exaggeration becomes obvious. 21% oxygen, Zalthor read, then looked up with mock seriousness. Which, I should mention, is 1% away from being actively flammable. Their entire atmosphere is basically waiting for an excuse to explode. They've had to invent something called fire safety regulations. He scrolled further. Oh, and their weather patterns. Hurricanes, tornadoes, monsoons, blizzards. They have frozen and boiling zones on the same planet. Sometimes in the same geographic region depending on their axial rotation cycle. General Throck snorted. So they have weather. What about diseases? Surely soft-bodied species like this don't have significant pathogen exposure. Zalthor's laugh could have stripped paint. Oh, this is my favorite part. They claim to have survived something called the Black Death that killed 30% of their population in one region. Then there's smallpox, tuberculosis, malaria, and about 15,000 other microscopic organisms actively trying to kill them at any given moment. According to this application, they currently have several diseases that remain incurable, and they just live with them. Casually. Like it's normal. He pulled up an image of a human. The council stared at the bipedal creature with its smooth skin, lacking any visible armor plating, scales, or defensive features whatsoever. No claws. No fangs. No exoskeleton. Just soft, vulnerable flesh wrapped around a skeletal frame that looked like it would snap in a stiff breeze. This, Pelvat said slowly, is what they're calling a Deathworlder? It looks like something we'd keep as a pet. An inside pet. In a protective enclosure. Zalthor nodded sagely. Precisely my assessment. Clearly, they've dramatically exaggerated their circumstances to gain entry into our Federation. It's almost endearing, really. Like a child claiming they fought off a monster that was actually just a shadow. So we reject the application? Asked a junior representative. Reject? Krelnatha's voice boomed across the chamber. Absolutely not. We accept them immediately. This will be the most entertaining diplomatic season in decades. I give them 3 cycles before they request environmental assistance for their delegation. 2 cycles, countered Throck. 1 cycle, and they'll be begging to return home, added Pelvats, and just like that, the betting pool began. Credits exchanged digital hands as the council wagered on how quickly the soft, ridiculous humans would realize they were in over their heads. The consensus was unanimous. This was going to be hilarious. If only they knew. If only they had any idea what was about to walk through their airlock doors, but they didn't. And that, dear reader, is where our story gets interesting. The human delegation arrived on Station Kepler 9 exactly 3 cycles after their acceptance, which won nobody's bet and immediately caused some grumbling about timing. The airlock hissed open, and the assembled Vrexian welcoming committee straightened their ceremonial armor, prepared to greet what they assumed would be a terrified, possibly already dying, delegation of fragile aliens. What they got instead was Captain Marcus Chen and Dr. Yuki Nakamura, strolling through the airlock in what could only be described as business casual attire. No environmental suits. No breathing apparatus. No protective gear whatsoever. Commander Krelnath felt his mandibles go slack. The station was kept at standard Vrexian atmospheric conditions, higher oxygen content than most species could tolerate, temperature fluctuations that required most visitors to wear thermal regulation gear, and just a hint of sulfur compounds that made it spicy. Literally every other species wore environmental suits here. Every single one. The humans looked around with bright, curious eyes, apparently unbothered. Hello. Captain Chen extended his hand in what the Vrexian Cultural Database had identified as a human greeting gesture. Captain Marcus Chen, United Earth Diplomatic Corps. This is Dr. Yuki Nakamura, our xenobiologist. Beautiful station you have here. Very roomy. The oxygen mix is great, really refreshing actually. Is it always this comfortable? Krelnoth stared at the outstretched appendage. Behind him, Ambassador Zalthor was frantically checking his datapad, presumably to confirm that life support hadn't accidentally been set to Earth normal conditions. It hadn't. You are, Krelnoth began slowly, not wearing environmental protection. Dr. Nakamura looked down at her blazer and slacks as if noticing them for the first time. Oh, should we have dressed more formally? The cultural brief said business casual was appropriate for first meetings. We can change if we've committed a faux pas. No, I mean protective gear. For the atmospheric conditions. Every species requires environmental suits on Vrection stations. Marcus and Yuki exchanged confused glances. Why? Marcus asked. The specs you sent were pretty standard. Little warm maybe, but nothing a decent climate control system can't handle. We've got the same conditions in parts of Earth. Ever been to Singapore in summer? Now that's humid. Zalthor stepped forward, his earlier condescension faltering. But the oxygen content. The temperature variance. The trace elements in the air that are toxic to most species. Oh, the sulfur compounds? Yuki waved a hand dismissively. Barely noticeable. We have volcanic regions back home where the concentrations are way higher. Tourists visit them for fun. Well, and the hot springs. The sulfur is supposed to be good for your skin. There was a long silence. The kind of silence that happens when your entire worldview starts developing stress fractures. Marcus, apparently oblivious to the existential crisis he was causing, continued cheerfully. Actually, this reminds me of home. I'm from Brisbane originally. That's in Australia. You know about Australia, right? We mentioned it in our application. The continent with the dangerous fauna, Krelnoth said weakly. That's the one. Yeah, I grew up swimming in waters with box jellyfish, which can kill you in about 3 minutes if they sting you. Also sharks, crocodiles, stonefish, blue-ringed octopi, and aggressive magpies during swooping season. Good times. Built character. Marcus smiled fondly at the memory, as if he were describing a pleasant childhood park and not a hellish death zone. Doctor Nakamura nodded enthusiastically. I'm from Japan, which has slightly fewer murder animals but makes up for it with earthquakes, typhoons, and the occasional volcanic activity. Plus, we invented fugu, which is a delicacy that can kill you if the chef makes one wrong cut. We eat it for fun. For fun, Zalthor repeated, his voice hollow. Sure. The risk is part of the appeal. Though honestly, mosquitoes are probably more dangerous than fugu. Those little guys kill about 700,000 humans every year through disease transmission. Malaria, dengue fever, Zika, West Nile. Persistent little monsters. The Vrection Welcoming Committee had stopped welcoming and started having what could only be described as a collective nervous breakdown. The numbers weren't adding up. The soft, vulnerable creatures in front of them were describing casualty rates that would depopulate most civilized worlds, and they were doing it with the casual tone of someone discussing mild weather inconveniences. Captain Chen, Krelnoth said carefully, you mentioned these mosquitoes kill hundreds of thousands of your species annually. What is your planet's population? Oh, about 8 billion last census. Give or take a few million. We breed pretty fast. 8 billion. On a planet actively trying to kill them. The Vrection homeworld, by comparison, had 2 billion, and they were considered one of the most successful Deathworld species in the galaxy. It was at this point that someone made the mistake of offering the humans refreshments. Standard Vrection hospitality fare, which included a beverage with mild toxins that most species found invigorating in small doses. Marcus drank it like water. Oh, that's got a nice kick. What is it? It contains several compounds that are technically poisonous to most biological systems, Zalthor said faintly. Neat. We do the same thing back home. We call it alcohol. Some cultures also drink stuff with caffeine, which is literally a pesticide that plants evolved to kill insects, but we love it. Can't start the day without it, honestly. Dr. Nakamura pulled out her own datapad. Actually, while we're on the subject of biology, I have some questions about Vrexian physiology. I was reading your medical database, and I noticed you only have one liver. How do you process toxins efficiently? And you don't have an appendix backup for your immune system? A backup liver? Krelnatha's voice had climbed an octave. What do you mean backup liver? You know, in case the first one fails. Humans have remarkable redundancy. 2 kidneys, 2 lungs, a backup immune system factory. Our bodies are basically built on the assumption that parts will fail and need coverage. Don't you have any redundant systems? The silence that followed was the sound of an entire species realizing they might not be the Deathworlders they thought they were. Commander Krelnath, operating on what can only be described as a spectacular failure of judgment fueled by wounded pride, decided that the humans had simply gotten lucky with the station conditions. Clearly, a visit to Vrexia Prime itself would expose these soft creatures for the fragile beings they obviously were. It was a test, a challenge, a last-ditch attempt to prove that the Vrexians were still the galaxy's reigning Deathworld champions. The Council approved the cultural exchange with the enthusiasm of someone doubling down on a bad bet. 3 weeks later, the human shuttle touched down on Vrexia Prime's main spaceport. The Vrexian welcoming committee stood ready in their lighter domestic armor, prepared to catch the humans when they inevitably collapsed from the gravity, the heat, or the sheer hostility of everything around them. The shuttle door opened. Marcus Chin emerged wearing cargo shorts, a t-shirt that read, "I survived Australian summer and all I got was this lousy melanoma scare," and hiking boots. Dr. Nakamura followed in similar attire, along with 3 other humans who looked dressed for a casual weekend camping trip, not a single environmental suit among them. Marcus stretched, his joints popping audibly in the heavy air. Oh man, this is nice. What's the gravity here? Feels a bit heavier. Like, 10%? 15? 23% above Earth standard, Zalthor said, his voice strangled. Huh. Not bad. Like wearing a weighted vest at the gym. Good for the workout. Marcus did a little hop to test it. Yeah, totally manageable. The tour of Vrexia Prime's ecological preserve was supposed to be the crown jewel of intimidation. Krelnath personally led them through the razorgrass plains where the dreaded Kresh stalked, a 6-legged apex predator with venom that could drop a full-grown Vrexian in seconds. The beast emerged from the crimson vegetation, its multiple eyes fixing on the human delegation with predatory interest. The humans pulled out cameras. Oh wow, convergent evolution. Dr. Nakamura was practically vibrating with excitement. Look at the articulation on those joints. Marcus, are you getting this? The musculature suggests an ambush predator. Probably similar hunting strategy to Earth's big cats. Big cats? Krelnath asked weakly. Yeah, like tigers, lions, jaguars. We have several species of large feline predators. Humans have actually kept smaller versions of them in our homes for thousands of years. We call them cats. They're adorable. Murderous, but adorable. The Kresh, apparently confused by prey that wouldn't stop photographing it, lost interest and wandered off. The tour continued past carnivorous plants that sprayed acid, colonial insects with neurotoxic stings, and a grove of trees whose bark contained compounds that could cause respiratory failure. The humans oohed and awed like tourists at a botanical garden, comparing everything to Australian funnel-web spiders, Brazilian wandering spiders, poison dart frogs, and something absolutely nightmarish called a cassowary. It's like a dinosaur that survived the extinction event and chose violence, Marcus explained cheerfully. They have claws that can disembowel you with one kick. We put up warning signs and just let them have the right of way. Dinner was supposed to be the final revelation. Traditional Vrexian cuisine included dishes with mild toxins that created a pleasant tingling sensation for Vrexians but required careful preparation to avoid overdose. The chef had prepared the most potent version deemed safe, figuring it would at least give the humans a memorable stomachache. The humans added hot sauce. Hot sauce they had brought from Earth. Sorry, habit, Marcus said, noticing the stunned looks. This is really good though. The toxin profile is interesting. Reminds me of fugu, but with more of a kick. Almost like eating Sichuan peppers. You ever have those? They literally make your mouth go numb. It's great. Dr. Nakamura was on her third helping. Do you have the recipe? I'd love to try making this at home. We have a saying on Earth, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Although we also have another saying, everything is edible at least once. We're not always great at risk assessment. Clearly, Zalthor muttered into his drink. The next day, the humans suggested some light recreation to build diplomatic bonds. Marcus proposed a friendly game of something called rugby. The Vrexians, still clinging to their warrior pride, agreed. This was a mistake. Rugby, it turned out, was less a game and more a barely controlled riot with scoring. The rules seemed to be, get the ball to the end while everyone tries to physically destroy you. When a Vrexian player tackled Marcus, Marcus popped back up laughing, despite what looked like an injury that should have required medical attention. Good hit. You guys are naturals at this. The Vrexians were not naturals. 3 players retired with injuries. 1 developed a fear of oval-shaped objects. The humans won 47-3 and suggested they go easy next time, but the real breaking point came during a hiking expedition to Vrexia Prime's volcanic highlands. The humans insisted on taking a trail rated as extreme danger that most Vrexians avoided entirely. Halfway up, they encountered a scaled render, one of the planet's most feared predators, all teeth and rage and territorial aggression. Marcus stopped. The render growled. Marcus tilted his head, made eye contact, and slowly extended his hand. Marcus, no, Dr. Nakamura said tiredly, in the tone of someone who had said this exact phrase many times before. Marcus, yes, he replied, and proceeded to scritch the murder beast under what passed for its chin. The render, confronted with a creature too stupid to be afraid and apparently possessing some kind of supernatural calming aura, flopped over and showed its belly. We call this pack bonding, Marcus explained to the horrified Vrexians. Humans do this with basically anything. We domesticated wolves into dogs. We keep apex predators as emotional support animals. One time we made friends with an octopus at an aquarium. We can't help it. We see something dangerous and our first instinct is, but what if we became friends though? The scaled render was now purring. Actually purring. A sound Vrexians didn't even know it could make. Commander Krelnoth sat down heavily on a rock, his worldview in tatters around him. The humans weren't just surviving the Deathworld. They were thriving in it. Enjoying it. Making friends with its murder fauna. They weren't the fragile species that needed protection. They were something far more terrifying. They were indestructible optimists from a planet that made Vrexia Prime look like a health spa. The emergency council session was called at Dark 100 station time, which should tell you exactly how panicked the Vrexian Empire had become. The chamber filled with bleary-eyed representatives who were extremely unhappy about being dragged from their sleep cycles. That unhappiness lasted approximately 30 seconds, which was how long it took for Commander Krelnoth to begin his presentation. Colleagues, he began, his voice carrying none of its usual bravado, we have a problem. A significant, possibly civilization-altering problem. The humans are not what we thought they were. Oh, come now, Ambassador Peldat said irritably. So they handled Vrexia Prime better than expected. That hardly warrants an emergency session. Krelnoth pulled up a holographic display. I have compiled data. Comparative data. Please direct your attention to the screen, and try not to panic. The first chart showed atmospheric composition. Earth's oxygen levels were highlighted in aggressive red. Next to it, a note, 1% below combustible threshold. Humans evolved in conditions where their atmosphere was actively flirting with exploding. That's just the beginning, Krelnoth continued, scrolling through slides with the manic energy of someone who'd seen too much. Gravity comparison: Earth's gravity is higher than 62% of Council member homeworlds. Temperature range: -89 to 56 degrees Celsius. They have documented settlements at both extremes. General Throck leaned forward. What about predator density? Surely that's where the exaggeration lies. The next slide made several representatives gasp. It was a comparison chart of apex predators per square kilometer. Earth wasn't just high on the list. It was off the chart. Literally. They'd had to rescale the graph. They have 16 species of apex predators on land alone, Krelnoth said. Not counting the ones in their oceans, which are somehow even worse. They have fish with teeth so sharp they're used as weapons. Aquatic mammals that hunt in coordinated packs using sophisticated communication. Invertebrates that can kill with a single touch. And this doesn't even count the microscopic predators. Their disease burden alone would qualify them as a death world. So they're from a hostile planet, Zalthor interjected, trying to salvage something. That doesn't make them more impressive than us. We've conquered worse. Have we though? Krelnoth pulled up another chart. Vrexian population, 2 billion. Catharii population, 1.3 billion. Stonehide population, 800 million. Human population, 8 billion. They outnumber us 4 to 1, on a planet that is actively, constantly, aggressively trying to kill them. The chamber went very quiet. It gets worse. Krelnoth's mandibles clicked nervously. I accessed their entertainment databases to understand their psychology. This was a mistake. He pulled up a video clip. It showed humans jumping out of aircraft with fabric straps, plummeting toward the ground at terminal velocity, apparently for recreation. Another clip showed humans climbing sheer rock faces without safety equipment. Another showed them riding inside metal cages while large predators tried to eat them. For fun. They did this for fun. This is called extreme sports, Krelnoth explained. They deliberately put themselves in danger because their lives aren't dangerous enough naturally. Dr. Nakamura's voice came from the chamber entrance, making everyone jump. Nobody had heard her come in. Oh, are you watching our highlight reels? You should check out free solo climbing. Or cave diving. Or that documentary about the guy who lived with grizzly bears until they ate him. We made a movie about it. Won awards. She'd been invited to observe the session, because apparently the council had lost all sense of self-preservation. She settled into a guest seat, looking delighted to be included. Krelnoth, desperately trying to maintain some dignity, continued. We also found your horror entertainment. Stories you tell each other specifically designed to cause fear responses. The interesting part is that most of your horror scenarios would just be normal environmental hazards on your planet. Dangerous wildlife, disease outbreaks, hostile weather. You've turned your daily existence into entertainment. Well, yeah, Dr. Nakamura said. If you can't laugh at the absurdity of existence on a planet covered in murder, you'd just be sad all the time. We cope with humor. And hot sauce. Lots of hot sauce. Ambassador Pelvatz pulled up another file, her bioluminescent patches flickering with distress. I found something called competitive eating contests. They consume dangerous quantities of food in timed competitions. For sport. This human consumed 69 cylindrical meat products in 10 minutes. That's not hunting. That's not survival. That's a cry for help. That's Joey Chestnut, Dr. Nakamura said proudly. National treasure. Actually, competitive eating is pretty tame compared to some stuff. Did you find the cheese rolling yet? We chase wheels of cheese down dangerously steep hills and injure ourselves catching them. The cheese usually wins. The council stared at her. Several representatives were making what their species considered distress signals, General Throck spoke slowly, carefully, like he was testing each word. Dr. Nakamura. Your species. Are you aware that you're terrifying? She blinked. Us? We're like the friendliest species in our own solar system. We pack bond with everything. We cry at sad movies. We adopt animals that could kill us and call them babies. That's what makes it worse, Krelnoth whispered. You're apex predators who think they're harmless. The council session devolved into what could generously be called a philosophical discussion and more accurately be described as a collective existential meltdown. Representatives argued about quarantine protocols, danger ratings, and whether humans should be classified as a hazardous material. Captain Marcus Chen, who joined Dr. Nakamura in the observation booth, finally raised his hand like a student in class. Sorry, can I say something? The chamber fell silent. When an apex predator asks permission to speak, you let them speak. We're just people, Marcus said simply. We're not trying to be scary. We didn't come here to intimidate anyone. We just wanted to make friends. Meet new species. Share cultures. Maybe get some good recipes. We thought you were all Deathworlders too, so we'd have stuff in common. You thought we had stuff in common? Zalthor's voice cracked slightly. You casually mentioned that your atmosphere is nearly flammable, like someone discussing the weather. Because for us, it is weather, Dr. Nakamura added gently. Look, every species here survived their own version of hell to reach the stars. The Cathari have acid swamps. The Stonehides have crushing gravity. You Vrexians have a whole ecosystem designed around murder. Those are all impressive. We're not competing. We're just happy to be here. Commander Krelnoth's mandibles clicked slowly as he processed this. You genuinely don't understand why we find you alarming. Not really, no, Marcus admitted. We're squishy. We sunburn easily. Half our population needs vision correction. We have terrible back problems because we evolved to walk upright like 5 minutes ago in evolutionary terms. We're kind of a mess, honestly. Ambassador Pelvat's tentacles swayed thoughtfully. Perhaps that's the real lesson here. Everyone's homeworld is deadly to someone else. What's normal for the spider is chaos for the fly, as one of your Earth sayings goes. Exactly. Dr. Nakamura beamed. Plus, think of the practical benefits. You need someone to explore that toxic hell planet? We'll check it out. Got a dangerous pest problem? We probably think it's cute and will adopt it. Need food tasters? Our livers are basically chemical processing plants. The tension in the chamber began to dissolve, replaced by a strange sort of acceptance. Maybe the humans were terrifying. But they were friendly, enthusiastic, and apparently indestructible. There were worse things to have in a galactic federation. Very well, Krelnoth announced. Humanity is officially welcomed into the Galactic Federation as a Deathworld species. May the universe have mercy on anyone foolish enough to threaten them. Marcus grinned. Great. Oh, one thing though. Do any of your ships have cats? We should probably mention that a lot of humans are severely allergic to them. Like, life-threatening anaphylaxis allergic. Same with certain tree pollens, peanuts, and shellfish. Our immune systems are really aggressive and sometimes attack harmless things by mistake. The silence that followed was deafening. Wait, General Throck said slowly. You survive all of that. Everything on your nightmare planet. And you're telling me a plant's reproductive particles can kill you? Yeah, spring is rough for some people. Also, we can't eat chocolate in large quantities or it's toxic. And grapes are fatal if we're not careful about the seeds. Oh, and some people just die randomly from their own hearts deciding to stop. Bodies are weird. Dr. Nakamura nodded. Evolution is less intelligent design and more duct tape and prayer. We're basically held together by stubbornness and spite. Commander Krelnoth put his head in his hands. The galaxy's most terrifying species was allergic to flowers and could be killed by dessert. The universe had a twisted sense of humor, but as the council adjourned and the humans enthusiastically suggested getting drinks to celebrate their membership, Krelnoth realized something important. Maybe humans were terrifying. Maybe they were fragile. Maybe they were both simultaneously, which was somehow worse, but they were also kind, curious, and genuinely excited to be part of something bigger than themselves. They'd pack bonded with a scaled render in under 5 minutes. Give them a few years, and they'd probably pack bond with the entire galaxy, and honestly, the galaxy could do worse. As Marcus and Dr. Nakamura left the chamber, already planning a cultural exchange potluck where they'd introduce everyone to something called tacos, Zalthor turned to Krelnoth. So we're really doing this? Accepting the death-immune, toxin-resistant, pack-bonding predators into our federation? Krelnoth's mandibles clicked in what might have been a laugh. My friend, I don't think we ever had a choice. The moment they walked through that airlock in shorts and a smile, our fate was sealed. Should we be worried? Terrified. But also strangely optimistic. He watched the humans disappear down the corridor, their laughter echoing through the station. Besides, I heard they're teaching a rugby workshop next week. I'm thinking of signing up. You're insane. No, Krelnoth said, a note of admiration creeping into his voice. I'm learning from the humans. If you can't beat the Deathworlders, join them. And maybe, just maybe, try to keep up. Somewhere in the distance, a human sneezed from pollen exposure and nearly caused a diplomatic incident. The galaxy would never be the same, and honestly, that was probably for the best.